Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of First Person, sponsored by the Ruin Camp Farm Drainage Company in Fort Laramie. 80 years of experience, farm, residential, and commercial. If you got wet fields, they'll make water work for you. Call Phil Barhorst. They're on Dawson Road at Ruin Camp's Farm Drainage. This is one of our favorite First Person gigs because we get to talk high school football with Nathan Baker of ABC 22 and Fox 45 in Dayton. You got a really good handle on that every Friday night. I love your coverage, the way you do it. I also love the personality you have with the kids. You do it well. And for the last 3 seasons, we have done the Friday Nights Picks page together, which is very popular on Press Pros because we get together, fight, argue, take advantage of each other. It gets a little competitive. The winner of the season at the end of the year either gets a lunch at Mindy's or an Armani suit. If you're into Seinfeld, you'll know what we're talking about. But thanks for coming back and doing it again with us this year. It is fun.
No problem. It's my pleasure. You know, I'm busy with all the football stuff that we do at the station, but you know, otherwise, this is one of the best things all year long to stand here and or do it online with you, pick the games. We both love high school football in the Miami Valley. This is one of the most fun parts of my year and every season for me.
I agree. We're right there on the threshold of the 2013 season. Before we talk about teams or players, I want to ask you about your top 22. We talk about that every year, and I'm sure it's a thrill for the kids to be on video and be on TV and get that recognition. Some of them maybe not so much, and we run into kids and just say, hey, you know, I really don't want to be on film. Some teams, some kids just say, hey, no individual attention. That's what we do, and we've decided to do that as a team. I want to ask you how tough it is for you to put all that together, because it is very well done.
Yeah, for those who don't know, this is the 8th year we've done the top 22. We picked the top 22 incoming seniors from 22 different schools. So sometimes it's tough just to pick one kid from one school.
Yeah.
But we like to highlight 22 different schools and go around the Miami Valley, get deep in Dayton, and then kind of work our way out and get some of the outlying schools as well. It's fun. And over the past few years, we've started to kind of gain a little traction with the kids. They know when you're part of the top 22, some of their senior teammates the year before were on the top 22. And the entire idea is to, instead of putting the coaches in front of the camera, is to put the kids in front of the camera. And some of these kids love talking about themselves, love talking about football, love talking about the team, and it's exciting to get their perspective from a teenager on how this season's going to go. And you know who likes it the most is mom and dad, and that's who we're trying to please with this.
Well, you market it well, you do a good job of putting it together, and it's one of those, as you say, after 8 years, it's something that they expect, they look forward to, and it really is a good way to kick off, to use that terminology, the annual high school football season. Now that said, typically when we do this, I let you sort of be the source. I-70 and south. Yeah. I take I-70 north, the county's up here. Tell us, give us 3 or 4 players of note from your top 22 team this year for south of I-70.
Well, first for me, I think is Vayante Copeland, because of what he has done for Thurgood Marshall. That program, a couple years ago, they beat Alter in the playoffs, kind of shocked everybody. They pulled an upset. Didn't look like an upset when they came back last year and came 1 win from a Dayton City team making a state final for the first time ever. And he was a big part of that. It was his first year starting at running back. He did so much last year that he earned a full ride to Michigan State. So that's nothing to scuff at there. I mean, that's a good season for Vayante Copeland. He's a sharp kid as well, so I look for him to do not just big things this year, but big things moving forward for the Michigan State Spartans. I love Jack Schaff. He's a good kid. He's a quarterback at Springboro. They were 10-0 last year with him under center. Kind of came out of nowhere. They tripped up in the first week of the playoffs, but they're going to have a lot of guys back, a lot of skill players back. They had Marvin Lewis and the Bengals in town last week, and they were talking about how that is kind of a new motivation for them, kind of a breath of fresh air for them to see how NFL players do it. I think Springboro is going to have a very good season. You look at a guy like Tito Odenibo, his brother Afadi, who currently plays at Northwestern. Centerville. Yeah, he was a top 22 kid 3 years ago, and now his little brother, who I met in the living room that night when I met Afadi, was just a little kid. Now he's a gigantic young man, and he's going to Illinois. He's going to be a force to reckon with in the defensive line for Centerville. I don't know if they have the horses to kind of run with the Cincinnati teams this year, but he's definitely going to be a kid who's in the backfield a lot. Terry Ramsey at Northmont's another good defensive lineman. Some really good players down south, but I'm more excited maybe about some of these kids up in your area as well. Some really talented.
Well, and the nice thing about our area, or at least the unique thing, is so many great players out of real small schools. Heading the list might be Adam Burke, the quarterback who's 6'6" and 220 from Marion Local, who's won 6 state titles in the last 12 years.
Biggest kid in Maria Stein.
Including back-to-back. He's going to Pittsburgh next year, and as you say, he can throw the football to any point on the field. He would head my list. Certainly another one in Coldwater would be Brody Hoyne, who popped on the scene last year. At Covington, AJ, who left, who's just a physical freak, and I think in their final tune-up last Friday night, he carried the ball 11 or 12 times and ran up 300 yards on Versailles, who's got Nick Campbell at quarterback, another very fine player. We're standing in Troy, Ohio today, and they got an offensive lineman there going to Bob Stoops in Oklahoma next year named Alex Dalton, 6'5", 280 pounds. That Scott Brewer, the coach here, says the most athletic lineman I've ever seen, or certainly ever coached. So you look at those, a Delonte Thornton, a Wes Martin over at Milton Union, some kids like that, linemen you like to talk about. A year older, more mature. I thought they were young last year. I thought football was good for the fact that we had teams win state titles at Coldwater and Marion, and certainly at Clinton Massey. I think it's going to be better this year because that talent is another year older, and that means so much in football.
And 2 other kids, I'd like to touch on. Ethan Wolf at Minster. They lost Nate Moore, the head coach. He went to LaSalle, but Ethan Wolf is the prototypical tight end now that the NFL and everybody's salivating over. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", he's lean, he can catch the ball, he's already committed to Tennessee. He's going to be very good. If they can get the ball to that kid, going to be very talented. It's going to be very fun to watch Minster football this year. They almost beat Marion Local last year in the regional semis. If they beat Marion, they might have gone on one state. Also another kid, Hunter Hausman at Northwestern. Young man who was so pumped to be part of the top 22 because last year he had like 1,900 yards passing, 1,100 yards rushing, 30-plus touchdowns, and nobody paid attention to him. You know, they were 5-5, which is really a good record. The best Northwestern's ever done is 6-4. And this kid is so pumped. He's got a chip on his shoulder. They throw the ball like 60 times a game. He said his sophomore year that all he did was hand it off. Now last year he threw it 60 times a game. I think that Northwestern might be a fun team to watch if you like to see the ball thrown around. And he's a kid that definitely deserves some attention.
Everybody wants to know, can we come back this area and win 3 titles again this year? We're going to find out pretty quickly just how good a team like Marion Local is, or a team like Coldwater. Coldwater opens with Kenton, which is always a very good team. Marion gets a challenge right out of the chute because they got to play Lima Shawnee on the road opening night. Then they come right back with West Jeff the following week, and certainly some good games in your area. Troy opens up against CJ this Thursday night. And but right out of the chute, you got some really good games down there as well in the Dayton area.
Yeah, actually, they have that whole Skyline Chili showdown, and Trotwood is obviously a team you got to talk about right away. They've been to state 3 straight times. They got maybe a dozen-plus kids who might play Division I college football, and they're going to open with Springfield, who might be under the radar, but they've got a kid, Thaddeus Snodgrass, who's going to Kentucky, a talented wide receiver. They got a linebacker who's going to Georgia Tech. That's going to be a very good game. That game starts at 6 o'clock on Friday, so that'll be a fun early kickoff. Rolls right into Northmont against Thurgood Marshall, 2 teams that have high hopes for this year. Going to be some really good games. Milton Union, Miami East, that's always a fun rivalry to kick off the year.
Wes Martin against the Fellers kid at the Miami East, good running back there. A team really, I thought last year that would be better than what they turned out to be, but all that talent for the Vikings is back this year. Max has got them playing well, and I think they're a year older and a year better.
I think sometimes that's maybe one of the toughest games to pick the first week of the year is when these two play.
Always.
And it seems like whichever team wins it kind of sets the tone for that next year.
And of course here in Miami County, as I said, we're in Troy, and everybody's asking about Troy and Pickle because Scott Brewer here at Troy would tell you if not for 4 plays, we would have been 8-2 last year instead of 4-6. And he can give you a chapter and verse about what that happened, how that happened. Troy was, Pickle was last year a little bit better at I think 6-4. Bill Neese is back. Travis played 2 years ago. The little brother Alex is there this year, about the size, as I said, of a postage stamp, but he'll be starting in their secondary and probably just about as wise football.
No pressure on him.
No, football-wise is what that is on the sideline. So that's going to be fun here.
And also, I was driving up the highway, and I drive by Troy Christian, and there's Steve Nolan, the former Troy coach, and they were off. They didn't play football last year, and he had about 25 kids running sprints while I'm driving by the highway. I love that stadium. First of all, it's fun to drive by that and see football being played there. But Steve's a hard-nosed guy. Maybe he'll turn that program around. I'm sure he'd love to kind of turn it into like an altar up here or something like that. It might be fun.
If you're interested in the Friday Night's Picks page, we publish it every Thursday night at midnight. We get about 40,000 viewers every Friday to see how Nathan Baker and I pick them, 8 to 10 games every week. We average about 85%. I notice, I do pay attention to the other newspapers and the pages. They run about 50 to 60, 65%. We're a little bit better than that.
It's not that tough, right? I mean, why do they make it so tough on themselves? We try to pick some tough games. Sometimes there's no doubt you're going to have to pick a game because they're rivals and
right.
It's a landslide victory. But we try to pick some tough games, and we usually do very well. And if we're off, it's only off by a point or two. I mean, a couple years ago, I beat you.
Yep.
You beat me last year, and it was always by just a margin of 3 points or a touchdown or a point.
I like the one that a couple years ago when you won the competition, because I know one week I got beat by 3 points. I picked a couple of upsets.
Right, you did.
And one I got beat by 3 points, another one I got beat by a point in overtime. Otherwise, I would have had the Armani suit.
Sometimes you got to go out on a limb.
Yeah.
That's where we get caught, right? But you got to make it fun and entertaining, and I know you get a lot of page views and a lot of people comment. So hopefully we keep them happy this year. I'm excited to be back. It's fun.
Well, that page will be back starting this week, and again sponsored by our friends at Paul Sherry Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Piqua. The Friday Night's Picks page, you can check it out midnight on Thursday night, all day Friday with Nathan Baker and yours truly. That wraps up this week's edition of First Person, again sponsored by the Ruin Camp Farm Drainage Company in Fort Laramie. That's Phil Barhorse on Dawson Road, 80 years experience. They will make water work for you. For our friends at the sponsors that up on Dawson Road and Ruin Camps, and for Nathan, thanks again for doing this. And enjoy the beginning of the 2013 season here on PressProsMagazine.com. We'll see you next time with another edition of First Person.